Greetings everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, My Hero Academia, the final season.
Yep, My Hero Academia, the final season, episode 8. That's where we're at. Yeah, we're on 8. It's been 2 months. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the dojo. And well, last week we had Eri learned it by watching Eraser, among other things. So everybody's stepping up. Things are occurring. And the All for One shenanigan that we talked about a while back happened. So the whole killing Shigaraki thing is probably going to be one of those, hey, you got to me, you saved me, but you kind of have to kill my body. So
yeah.
It's that half measure kind of deal. So that is what it is. It'll be interesting to see how it goes about this. So we're just kind of along for the ride at this point. And there's honestly no more speculation that needs to be had because, well, I mean, we can see it right there. If you're on Crunchyroll, you can see it in the next list. It's the epilogue starts next week. So, and the one thing that I'm gonna have to confirm is a lot of people and a lot of stuff came out because, everything going on with John Cena retiring. He retired last night, and MHA also ended last night. So people were freaking out, having like the worst days ever. I'm not even gonna get started on the John Cena stuff. That's a whole other discussion. But they did say at some point, and it was confirmed by a bunch of sources, and I believe the studio as well, that they were doing like a 12th episode. So I'm gonna have to re-look into that and see if that was just a lot of misconfirmed things, because the 12th episode was supposed to cover like the extra bit of the epilogue that was written a little bit later, that had a couple other things in it. So we'll just have to see. I'll have to look into that. But as we get closer to that, since we're doing the dub, we still have several weeks more to go. So we'll have to look into that, if that's going to be a thing or what, if it's only going to be a sub-only thing or whatnot, or how that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be weird if it is only newer stuff or whatever, because as we see right there, it's the Hellish Todoroki family, when apparently the original epilogue, it was only part of the extended epilogue that Dabi was even mentioned, apparently.
Yeah. So we'll just have to look into that. Maybe they just kind of rolled it all into these episodes and people thought it was going to be a 12th episode. Or there's a lot of misinformation out there that you have to like fact check. And that one I saw in multiple places, in fairly credible places. So I didn't really look into it too much more. But yeah, we'll just have to see. But either way, I'm ready for this. The epic grand finale as it would be. So we'll see what happens with this last bit with Deku and All for One. So yeah, and now that everybody's showing up, so full on cheer squad, right? give them the power for the spirit bomb or whatever, right? That's what this is going to be. So yeah,
hey everyone, get in here.
Pretty much. So as always, people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, and people on YouTube for the discussion and review. So those links are where they need to be. So if you guys are looking for either or, that's where they're at. So we're going to push some buttons and get going here. So here goes something. Well, alrighty then. There you guys have it. The end of the actual story that isn't the epilogue, that has all kinds of stuff that, well, in longer running series like this, and I've talked about this before, and I think this is why like Oda is really hesitant to end One Piece, because he doesn't know how he can possibly do it without pissing off so many people. You know what I mean? And I think that's a fear for a lot of authors, is just like, how do I end this to get the least amount of hate possible? You know what I mean? No matter what you do, no matter who wins Game of the Year, no matter what it is, there's always going to be somebody that's going to be pissed off in a group fashion, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So it's always...
Which I will say, like, we still have the epilogue to do, but just this as the ending is fine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Like,
I don't think it deserves nearly as much ridiculous freaking hate as it was getting.
Yeah, like, and this is something that we're going to talk about when we do our has-been wrap-up, is I think there's a lot of, and I don't like to call them tourists, because I think it's kind of an offensive term, but there's a lot of people and I'll discuss this a little bit more when we do the has-been thing, so you guys can watch that. But it's one of those things where when Age and I do our reactions and stuff, while we don't talk a lot, and I see a lot of other reactors who they like, whether it's a group of 2 or more, especially, obviously it's a lot less when it's just a single reactor. But when you have groups of reactors and they're sitting there talking through the whole show, and I've watched a lot of their stuff at this point, just various different things. I'm not calling anybody out. They can do their content however they want. It's none of my business. But from an objective standpoint of retaining what happens, if they don't go back and individually watch it after the fact, and they only watch the series as a group reaction thing in that one way, and they're kind of like talking through the whole show, they miss a lot of things. And when they're talking about stuff after the fact, it's like, dude, if you were actually paying attention to the show, you would have gotten that. In short, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And that's how a lot of people are with just general thing. They see like a clip of something or the cliff notes of something, and they think they know everything when they don't. It's like, I can't believe they didn't address this. It's like, yes, they did. It was right there. If you had actually watched everything or read everything as you claimed, you know it. And a lot of the people that claim like manga stuff and whatnot, it's just like, yeah, but manga readers can also be things called trolls. They can just quickly edit manga panels together to make it look like it's something different than it was. You know what I mean? To troll the anime watchers. Just because you're a manga reader doesn't mean you can't be a troll. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where there's a lot of people who just don't have all the information, is the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you always have to take any information that you get with a grain of salt, because it could be somebody that just doesn't have all the information for various reasons, you know? So, and I know a lot of people who watch shows while they're doing something else, and I absolutely can believe that there are people who can multitask and stuff like that, but there are very few people out there that can like be doing something and then just like have this over here and they're like watching it on the side end. I believe you could do that if you're like rewatching something, you know, and have that rewatch experience while you're doing something else. But first time experience anything, watching a movie, reading a book, whatever it is, you can't do it sideways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't have a bunch of noise going on all over the place, no matter what it is, whether you're talking in a group of people or, you know, you're like working on like a project, say you're like doing game design or doing some kind of art, and you just have this over on the side and it's the first time you're watching it. You're missing context. It's that simple. You know what I mean? So, we talked a little bit about it at the end of the reaction of like, if this was just how the show ended, a lot of shonen have ended this way. And it's a perfectly fine ending. There's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? The like massive like hate behind this is like, I don't know what else we wanted out of this. We got pretty much everything we needed. Shigaraki was sort of like, you know, dealt with in the way that they were alluding to. You know, all for one got his entire story arc, you know, completely just taken care of and all that. You know, the thing coming full circle with, you know, one for all, you know, destroying bodies that aren't, you know, prepared for it, that kind of thing. That's everything you needed. All the team ups from, you know, Deku building all these bonds of trust and being like a pseudo leader and a symbol for his friends. That, you know, that was the difference between him and All Might. And Age mentioned it at the end of the episode, was All Might was the one. Deku is the all. You know what I mean? Yeah.
All Might, that was ultimately like All Might's big failing, was when he got One for All. He basically tried to play it like All for One. He tried to just, everything hinges on me. I'm the most important thing. I'm the linchpin. I'm the one who has to do everything to keep things running.
Yep. And that's what the guy, the civilian that was in episode 1 and then talked everybody down at the school was saying. It's just like, yeah, we had All for One. He was the pillar. He was the symbol of peace and all that. But a lot of other heroes got complacent and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
All Might, yeah.
Yeah, All Might, yeah.
Yeah, that was ultimately like, well, yeah, All Might did bring about like the great era of peace and stuff like that. He's also indirectly responsible for pretty much all of the corruption that came as a result of it.
Yep.
Because it was just a thing of he was just going around solving problems and making it to where no one else really had to do anything. And it just became, that's where things like the popularity contests and stuff started kicking in.
Yep.
It became less of about like heroes actually being heroes and more just heroes being heroes for the sake of the popularity and the fame and stuff like that. Because All Might was just going to take care of it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, not to say that no heroes were doing anything else. Obviously, you know, there are plenty. He couldn't be everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there were just obviously still heroes that were doing stuff. Like, once again, freaking Endeavor has like twice his resolved cases, but he just didn't have the freaking charisma or power to actually take the #1 spot from All Might.
Yep. So that was what it was. We got, again, everything that needed to happen in this episode did. You know, Deku's character arc, all that stuff that we talked about, just like all the bonds of trust that he's, you know, accumulated over. Once again, it's been about 2 years now since all of this has started, and there is something that I've seen in the since, you know, the sub has wrapped up now, potentially. If they don't do a 12th episode, then it is wrapped up. But there's a lot of stuff that I saw with a certain relationship that we'll wait to talk about. But it's just that goes hand in hand with what I talked about earlier with, you know, the tourists and that kind of thing. And having a headcanon is fine, but at the end of the day, you need to accept what the author dictates for his or their character. His or her character or their character. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's their story. You know what I mean? So the author has the final say. It doesn't matter what anybody's headcanon is. I don't care if the entire world, you know, is against the author and the entire world has this headcanon of X character goes with this character. If the author says they don't, then they don't. You have to deal with it. It's not your story. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that a lot of people that have these headcanons need to be able to step back and just say, hey, my headcanon would be cool, whatever, but you need to be able to step back and respect the author's decision to write the story however they want, because it's theirs, not yours. You know what I mean? So that's something we'll talk about a little bit later when we get into the epilogue and however they handle a couple of these things. But it will be interesting to see what they choose to wrap up, how they show it off based on what the author did do in the epilogues, especially after a lot of people apparently, you know, when the manga ended, had a bunch of problems with a bunch of like unresolved things and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with a shonen ending this way, and a lot of series end fairly open-ended. You know what I mean? Even rom-coms and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It just kind of leaves it up to the interpretation of the reader for that. It's just like, well, then maybe this happened or that happened or whatever. You know, then you can have your headcanons when the author doesn't say anything about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of series where like being more open-ended makes sense, and that largely is one of the reasons why a lot of authors do tend to do it, is that way people can just kind of headcanon come up with how they want the things to have concluded ultimately after the end of whatever's going on. Like the big example of that being shippers of like, well, who's going to get with who?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where at the end of the day too is like, if it's left open-ended, you're allowed to have your headcanon, but you can't speak of it like it's fact and that's it 100% would have happened. Because it's just a theory. You know what I mean? Not even a game theory.
A nerd theory?
Yeah, a nerd theory. It's a Crunchyroll player theory is what it is. That's, you know, what it is, 100%. But either way, to that end, you know, again, there's nothing really to complain about for this. Every character arc came about the way it needed to, and it was handled great. We had all those like random extra team ups there at the end, like Mike and Kyoka, that kind of thing. You know, that's a, you know, combo attacks that make sense, that kind of thing that people would like find interesting and stuff like that. I mean, hell, Momo even busted out a freaking railgun. You know what I mean? Bakugo came out of the ER to do this to take out Kurogiri at the end here. So it's just one of those things.
And mind you, we got the third finally because he parried Kurogiri with his teeth.
Yeah, he did. He did parry him with his teeth because that's what's happening here.
He literally just fucking headbutts him.
Yep. So, either way, there was a bunch of stuff set up for the epilogue, that kind of thing. I have some random knowledge on the epilogue because there was a bunch of stuff that I looked into last year when it did end, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know a few things, like the whole like Aerie situation that we talked about and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they put into this, but again, this is going to be bare minimum 3 episodes. If they do the 12th one that they talked about, like potentially doing volume 432 or whatever it is, the last epilogue one. I don't know if they covered that or whatever, but we'll just have to see what they cover. And like I said, I'm going to go read it my damn self. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know this most recent bit of the epilogue apparently has some pretty interesting and kind of weird implications to it.
Yeah. So there'll be a bunch to talk about for that, but for an end of the series, as generally speaking of like how a shonen would end, pretty much what you want to see, you know. It had a lot of mechanics and things of like past shonen and stuff like that, but there's only so many ways you can write a story ending like this. You know what I mean? So it's going to be one of like a handful of different scenarios where the protagonist side wins, and it's going to be this, that, or the other thing. You know what I mean? It's going to be a situation like this, or Deku would have pushed through on his own, or whatever it may have been. It's just one of those things where you just want that. You want the satisfying resolution to the situation. You know what I mean? You don't want to be called Baldy and have another company's name chanted at you in the post game. You know what I mean? So, again, this did everything that it needed to, and there's a bunch of stuff that I can say for just the series on the whole, but we'll save that for the last episode. You know what I mean? When we do like the season and series wrap up, and certain things that I want to say about certain characters, I could say them now, but I'd rather just save it for the last episode because there's probably not going to be a huge amount to talk about in the last epilogue sequence, because based on whatever they do next time, we'll probably get a pretty good bearing of like, okay, they did this episode, what's going to be in the last 2? Well, what needs to be done, and what could they possibly do? Because the biggest things that honestly need to be wrapped up in the biggest one is the Dabi situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we have things like Shigaraki's last wish being like, hey, relay that message to Spinner, that kind of thing. Spinner should still be alive. He didn't die. Of the League members, it's just Spinner and Dabi that are left, I believe. I don't think there's anybody else that's still alive. Compressed might still be alive?
I don't remember if Compress was arrested or dead.
Yeah, I think he just got arrested after the Makia thing. Like the first encounter. So, yeah, I don't remember. that one is what it is, but the 2 biggest ones are Dabi and Spinner, and then we know what happened with everybody else. But, yeah, those are the 2 biggest ones. And then obviously the relationship stuff. How school life could potentially go on, that kind of thing. What happens in the years after, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know during the epilogue at some point we get like basically info from like 10 years later or whatever of like where they kind of ended up as adults and things like that.
Right. So either way, that should be a thing, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. So again, it was a solid finale. I don't really have any problems with it. It did everything it needed to do. So bravo, well done. Can't really ask anything more of that. And like I said, they canonized all the movies, including the one that nobody really liked. And that was the one spoiler, if you will, is the that the Japanese VA for that character was just like, yeah, I went all the way to Tokyo to record that one line. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's just like, well, I mean, it's Japan, so, you know, it probably didn't take him that long to get into the studio. It's not like somebody living in New York flew all the way to LA to record a line, and it's not like you honestly have to be in a studio to be a VA these days, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but that was the thing where the guy like posed on Twitter or something, and he was just like, yeah, I came in just to do that. I mean, why not? You know, it's literally your job, and you know, then you get a mildly hilarious story out of it. So that kind of stuff is always funny. But yep. So that's all I can say for this one. You know, it wrapped up well. You know, I don't really have any complaints. So, you got anything else, Age?
Yeah, no, like, we basically resolved everything but the epilogue stuff at this point. Like, if there was no epilogue, there would be questions. But knowing that there's an epilogue, then there really isn't any problem with this currently.
Yep. And even with the questions that are probably and obviously going to be answered from what we know, there's still going to be an open-endedness of still people being able to have their headcanon of what happens next. You know what I mean? What happens after that?
Yeah.
If you really want to think about that stuff. I'm not saying that people who do that are bad or stupid or anything like that. You're free to do whatever you want. But for a series like this, it's just like something I never really think about. It's just like, yeah, you know, well, what does it really matter? You know what I mean? To me, anyway. But I know a lot of people get into that and do that, and that's their business. It doesn't affect me. If it's what you like to do, then keep doing it. It's just not something that I ever personally think about in these series. When it ends, it ends. That's it for me. It's just like, yeah, maybe they had the whole happily ever after thing, and I don't really. It's not something that I personally really think about. It's like, oh, what happens to them after? It's like, do we really need to worry about, you know, every aspect of the rest of each one of their lives, hypothetically? You know?
Yeah, I mean, some people go full Faraway Paladin, and just nothing eventful really happens after the final battle.
Yep. I forgot we finished watching that. I don't even know if I want to do that video. It would be such a short video, you guys. I mean, holy crap. We might have to mention that, like, in our year of wrap-up video that I want to do. It's like, yeah, hey, so here are all the shows that we did this year. You know, we obviously know which one was the worst. But we also watched Faraway Paladin Season 2. Yeah, that was something. Obviously not the worst thing of all time, but man...
Still probably the worst thing we've watched. Like, it's right there with freaking Guild Receptionist.
Yeah. So, oh boy. But that's a whole other discussion. But either way, bravo to MHA. You know, they did a hell of a job with this this final season here, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the epilogue and stuff like that. And I know there's a bunch of stuff that people wanted to see animated and whatnot. And obviously, since we're doing the dub, we're a couple weeks behind, but that is what it is. But either way, yeah, hell of a series. Gotta appreciate what it did for the last 10 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond however you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And this was My Hero Academia, the final season, episode 8. We got at least 3 episodes left, and if that random 12th episode OVA thing that was talked about happens, then we'll do it. If not, then we wrap up at 11 and move on with our lives. So we still got 3 episodes to go at least. So that's a pretty sizable amount of runtime for epilogue. A lot of shows that do epilogue, it's like, you know, half of an episode. You know what I mean? We're getting 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we're getting that many. Like, usually, yeah, it's like either just tacked on to the tail end of the last episode, or they get like one final epilogue episode, not usually 3.
Yep. So I can't imagine the runtime will be shorter. Saying that, you know what I mean? There'd be no point to have 3 episodes if they're all going to be 12 minutes. You know what I mean? Then you would just do 1.5. You know what I mean? Whatever it is.
You just do like an extended final epilogue episode.
Yeah. So either way, again, people of YouTube, as always, we appreciate you, and have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you, and we'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.